I never thought a single notification sound would be the thing to destroy my entire world. But that's exactly what happened 2 days before my son's biggest baseball game of the season. It was a Tuesday evening in our Scottsdale home, and I was doing what I'd done 1,000 times before, grabbing David's phone from the kitchen counter to plug it in for him while he showered. My husband of 10 years was meticulous about everything, except remembering to charge his devices. It was one of those little wife things I'd grown used to, the kind of mundane gesture that makes up the fabric of a decade-long marriage. The screen lit up as I picked it up, and that's when I saw it. A text message preview from a contact, saved simply as M. The words made my stomach drop. The kids are asking when Daddy is coming home. I told them after his business trip. They miss you so much. We all do. Love you. My hands started shaking. Business trip? David was standing in our shower 20 feet away. The kids? We only had one son, 14-year-old Tyler. My brain scrambled to make sense of it, searching for some innocent explanation that would make this okay. Maybe it was a joke. Maybe it was a wrong number. Maybe I was misreading it. But I wasn't misreading anything. And my gut, that instinct every woman has but we're taught to ignore, was screaming that this was exactly what it looked like. I stood frozen in our kitchen, the phone burning in my hand like evidence at a crime scene. I could hear the water still running, hear David humming some classic rock song like he didn't have a care in the world, like he wasn't living a lie, like he hadn't just been exposed by a simple text message. My fingers moved before my mind could stop them. I swiped open his phone. Thank God he'd never changed his passcode from our anniversary date, though now that detail felt like salt in a wound. I opened his messages and found M. What I saw next made my knees buckle, and I had to grab the counter to keep from falling. Months of messages, hundreds of them. Photos of David with a woman I'd never seen before. Brunette, pretty, younger than me. Photos of David with 2 small children, a boy and a girl, maybe 5 and 3 years old. Photos of them at parks, at restaurants, at a house I didn't recognize. Photos labeled Family Day and our beautiful kids and my everything. I scrolled back further, my heart shattering with each swipe. The messages went back 7 years. 7 years. Our marriage was 10 years old, which meant for 70% of our time together, David had been living a double life. While I was being faithful, building our home, raising Tyler, supporting his career, he was building an entirely separate family just 15 minutes away in Tempe. 15 minutes. That's how close they were. 15 minutes from our home, from our life, from our bed. Close enough that he could slip away during late meetings or weekend golf games, or client dinners. Close enough that he'd probably driven past them on his way home to me 100 times. I found her Facebook profile through the photos. Her name was Monica. Her relationship status said, "It's complicated." Her profile picture was her and those 2 kids. And when I dug deeper into David's phone, I found calendar entries. Color-coded calendar entries. Blue for Sarah's house, red for Monica's house. Like we were just properties he managed. Time slots he needed to keep organized. He'd been systematic about it. Professional even. 3 nights a week with me and Tyler. 3 nights with Monica and their kids. 1 night for business flexibility. He'd built an entire infrastructure around his betrayal. Bank statements showed a second checking account I never knew existed. Insurance documents for Monica and the kids. School registration forms where he'd listed himself as the father. The shower turned off, and panic flooded through me. I quickly closed everything, put the phone back on the counter, and grabbed a dish towel so I'd look busy. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. My mind was racing so fast I thought I might pass out. David walked into the kitchen in his robe, hair still wet, smiling at me like he'd smiled at me 1,000 times before. "Thanks for grabbing my phone, babe," he said, kissing my cheek. His lips on my skin felt like poison. "Big day tomorrow. Got that presentation in Tucson." Tucson? Was that even real? Or was Tucson code for Monica's house? Was anything he'd ever told me real? "How long will you be gone?" I managed to ask, my voice somehow steady even though everything inside me was screaming. "Just overnight. Back Thursday afternoon." He poured himself water. So casual. So normal. Perfect timing. I'll be back before Tyler's game on Saturday. Wouldn't miss it for the world. Tyler's game. The championship game. The one my son had been working toward all season. The one that every parent, grandparent, and friend would be attending. The biggest moment of his freshman year. And then David said something that made my blood turn to ice. Oh, and I invited some colleagues from the Phoenix office. You know, team building, show support for the company families. They'll be sitting in the stand Saturday. Colleagues. My stomach turned. I smiled and nodded, playing the supportive wife role I'd perfected over 10 years. But inside, I knew. Those weren't colleagues. That was Monica. Those were his other children. He was going to bring his second family to our son's game. He was going to sit there with both of us, managing both families like it was just another day in his color-coded calendar. That's nice, I heard myself say. The more support for Tyler, the better. David smiled, kissed me again, and headed to bed. Coming? He called from the hallway. In a minute, I said. Just finishing up some work emails. But I wasn't finishing up emails. I was standing in my kitchen at 45 years old, realizing that my entire marriage was a lie, that the man I'd trusted, built a life with, shared a home and a child with, had been playing house with someone else for 7 years, that in 2 days, he was planning to parade both families around like it was normal, like we were all just part of his perfectly organized double life. I had 48 hours before Tyler's game. 48 hours to decide what to do with the truth that was burning a hole in my chest. Do I confront David now and risk ruining Tyler's big game? Do I wait until after and let my son have his moment? Do I pretend I don't know and let David bring his other family into our world? I looked at the calendar on our refrigerator. Saturday was circled in red marker with Tyler's championship game, written in my handwriting, with little baseball stickers Tyler had added himself, my 14-year-old son, who had no idea his stepfather had been lying to us both for most of his childhood. And then I made my decision. I wasn't going to confront David now. I wasn't going to give him time to prepare, to spin lies, to manipulate the narrative like he'd been doing for 7 years. I was going to let him bring Monica and those kids to the game. I was going to let him think he'd gotten away with it one more time. And then, in front of everyone, in front of our friends, our family, Monica, those children, and God himself, I was going to burn his entire double life to the ground. The next 48 hours were the longest of my life. I had to wake up next to David on Wednesday morning, make him breakfast, kiss him goodbye as he left for his supposed business trip to Tucson, and pretend that everything was fine. I had to act like a loving wife when every cell in my body wanted to scream the truth. As soon as his car pulled out of the driveway, I went into full investigation mode. I needed to know everything. Every detail of his double life, every lie he'd told, every moment he'd stolen from our family to give to hers. I made copies of everything on his phone through our shared cloud account. Bank statements, text messages, photos, calendar entries. All of it downloaded to my laptop like evidence for a trial. The more I uncovered, the more devastating it became. David had opened that second checking account 7 years ago, right after Monica got pregnant with their first child. He'd been funneling money to support that household. Mortgage payments, daycare costs, grocery bills, money that came from what I thought was our shared income, money that should have been going toward Tyler's college fund or our retirement. I found emails between David and Monica, discussing their future together, plans for when he would finally leave his complicated situation. That's what he called me. A complicated situation. Not his wife of 10 years. Not the woman who'd stood by him through career changes and family losses. A situation to be managed and eventually resolved. The thing that gutted me most was how ordinary it all looked. Monica wasn't some exotic affair or forbidden romance. She was just another woman living in Tempe, working as a dental hygienist, raising 2 kids who called my husband Daddy. Their text messages were full of the mundane details of family life. Who's picking up milk? Did you remember the parent-teacher conference? Can you grab diapers on your way home? It was exactly like the life I thought I had with David, except she had it 3 nights a week instead of my 3 nights. I discovered that David had told Monica he was divorced, that I was his ex-wife, who he had to see occasionally because of Tyler, but that we'd been separated for years. She had no idea I thought I was in a happy, intact marriage. She had no idea that on the nights David wasn't with her, he was lying in bed next to me, telling me he loved me, making plans for our future. Tyler came home from school on Wednesday afternoon and found me sitting at the kitchen table surrounded by printed documents. "Mom, you okay?" he asked, dropping his backpack by the door. I quickly shuffled the papers into a folder, forcing a smile. "Just work stuff, honey. How was school?" "Fine. Coach says I'm starting pitcher on Saturday. His face lit up with pride, and my heart shattered all over again. This was supposed to be his moment. The championship game, his first time starting as a freshman, the culmination of months of hard work, and I was about to blow up his world right in the middle of it. "That's amazing, Tyler," I said, pulling him into a hug. "I'm so proud of you." "Is David gonna make it back in time?" he asked. Tyler called him David, not Dad. He'd been 7 when I married David, old enough to remember his biological father who died when Tyler was 3. David had been good to Tyler, or at least I'd thought he had. Now I wondered if even that was a performance. "He'll be there," I promised, though the words tasted bitter. He wouldn't miss it. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in our empty bed. David was at Monica's house, tucked in with his other family, and I planned exactly what I would do on Saturday. I would arrive at the game early, sit in our usual spot in the bleachers, play the supportive stepmother role one last time. I would let David bring Monica and those kids, let him introduce them as colleagues, let him think he was still in control of his carefully constructed double life. And then, right before the first pitch, when everyone was settled and paying attention, I would stand up and tell the truth, not with rage or hysteria, but with calm, devastating facts. I would name every lie, every betrayal, every dollar he'd stolen from our family to support theirs. I would do it in front of our friends, our neighbors, Tyler's coach and teammates. I would do it in front of Monica, so she'd finally know the truth about the man she thought she knew. Would it ruin Tyler's game? Probably. Would it humiliate me? Definitely. But living this lie for one more day was killing me, and I refused to let David keep manipulating us all. If the truth was going to come out, and it was, then it would come out on my terms, not his. Thursday afternoon, David came home from his business trip with a gift bag from some Tucson boutique. "Got you something," he said, kissing my cheek like he was the perfect husband returning from a work obligation. Inside was an expensive scented candle and a note that read, "Missed you." I smiled and thanked him, then watched him unpack his overnight bag. There were signs everywhere if you knew to look. A second phone charger I'd never seen before, receipts from restaurants in Tempe instead of Tucson, cologne that smelled different than what he wore at home. How had I missed this for 7 years? Or had I seen it and just not wanted to believe it? "Big day on Saturday," David said that evening over dinner. "Tyler, you ready to show everyone what you've got?" Tyler nodded enthusiastically, talking about his pitching strategy and which batters he was most worried about. David listened and offered advice, playing the supportive stepfather role perfectly. I watched them interact and felt sick, knowing that in less than 48 hours, Tyler's image of David would be destroyed forever. That night, David pulled me close in bed. "I love you, Sarah," he whispered. "You know that, right? You and Tyler, you're my whole world." The lie was so smooth, so practiced, that I almost believed he believed it. Maybe he'd compartmentalized so completely that he could say those words to me on Thursday and say the exact same words to Monica on Friday and feel like he meant both. Maybe this was just who he was, a man capable of loving 2 families simultaneously, or incapable of truly loving either. "I love you too," I said back. Because what else could I say? I still had one more day to get through before I could stop lying. One more day before the truth burned everything down. Friday crawled by in agonizing slow motion. I went through the motions. Work emails, laundry, grocery shopping for snacks to bring to the game. I texted with other baseball moms about carpool arrangements and where we'd go celebrate after Tyler's team won. I lived in the world where I was still Sarah Mitchell, devoted wife and mother, blissfully unaware that my husband had a second family 15 minutes away. But underneath it all, I was preparing for war. I'd printed key documents and put them in my purse, bank statements showing the money transfers, photos of David with Monica and the kids, screenshots of text messages where he called them his family. I didn't know if I'd need physical proof, but I wanted to have it just in case David tried to deny everything. Friday night, the night before the game, David was home. His Sarah night, according to the color-coded calendar. We had dinner as a family, watched a movie, pretended everything was normal. Tyler went to bed early, nervous about his big game. David and I stayed up a little longer, sitting on the couch in comfortable silence. "Tomorrow's going to be great," David said. "I can feel it. Tyler's going to dominate, and my colleagues are going to see what an amazing family we have." There it was again. Family. Singular. like Monica, and those kids didn't exist. Like he could just switch between worlds and redefine reality depending on which house he was sleeping in. Yes, I agreed quietly. Tomorrow everyone is going to see exactly what our family is. David smiled, completely missing the double meaning in my words. He kissed me goodnight and headed upstairs. I sat alone in the dark living room of our Scottsdale home, looking at family photos on the wall, me and David on our wedding day, Tyler's school pictures, vacation snapshots from 10 years of what I thought was a real marriage. In 12 hours, I would walk into Desert Vista High School's baseball field and detonate the lie that had been our life. There would be no going back. No way to unsay what I was about to say. No way to shield Tyler or Monica or those innocent kids from the fallout. But the truth had to come out. And tomorrow, in front of God and everyone, it would. Saturday morning arrived with Arizona's merciless sunshine streaming through our bedroom window. I woke up before my alarm, my heart already racing with anticipation and dread. Next to me, David slept peacefully, completely unaware that this would be the last morning he'd ever wake up as a man with 2 families. I slipped out of bed quietly and went through my morning routine on autopilot. Shower, coffee, the baseball mom uniform I'd worn to 100 games before, jeans, sneakers, Tyler's team jersey. In the mirror, I looked exactly like I always did, but inside I felt like a completely different person. The woman who'd trusted blindly for 10 years was gone, replaced by someone harder, angrier, stronger. Tyler was already awake, too nervous to sleep. I made him his usual pre-game breakfast, scrambled eggs, whole wheat toast, orange juice. "How you feeling, honey?" I asked, watching him push food around his plate. "Scared," he admitted. "What if I mess up? What if I let the team down?" My heart ached for him. In a few hours, his biggest worry would no longer be baseball. "Tyler, listen to me," I said, sitting down across from him. "No matter what happens today, I am so incredibly proud of you. You've worked so hard for this moment, and nothing can take that away from you." He nodded, reassured, and managed a few more bites. David came downstairs a few minutes later, already wearing his Team Dad polo shirt and khakis. "My 2 champions," he announced cheerfully. "Ready for the big day?" I watched him ruffle Tyler's hair, watched him pour coffee like this was just another Saturday, and I marveled at how easily he inhabited the lie. 7 years of practice had made him an expert, but today, the performance ended. We arrived at Desert Vista High School at noon for the 1 o'clock game. The parking lot was already filling up with families, the bleachers starting to crowd with parents and students wearing team colors. Tyler headed to the dugout to warm up with his teammates, leaving David and me to find seats. "I'm going to grab our usual spot," I told David. "3rd row, right behind home plate." "Perfect. I'll wait here for my colleagues. Should be arriving any minute," he said, checking his phone. His eyes had that distracted look he always got when he was managing both worlds. Was he texting Monica? Coordinating where she should sit? Making sure the 2 families wouldn't accidentally interact before he was ready? "I'll save extra seats," I said, my voice steady despite the hurricane building inside me. "How many are coming?" "Just 3. Monica from accounting and her 2 kids," David said so casually, so smoothly. "She's a single mom. Thought it would be nice for her kids to see a real game. A single mom." Another lie stacked on top of thousands. I wondered how many lies he'd told just in the last 5 minutes. "That's very thoughtful of you," I managed, the words like broken glass in my throat. I climbed into the bleachers and claimed our spot, spreading out my blanket and setting down the cooler I'd packed with snacks and drinks. Other baseball moms waved and called out greetings. My friend Jessica came over with her husband. "Big day," she said, hugging me. "Tyler must be so excited. Is David here?" "Waiting for some colleagues from work," I said, the words tasting like ash. "They'll be up in a minute." "That's sweet of him to bring work people," Jessica said, "building that team culture. You guys are such a solid couple." "Solid couple." I almost laughed. Around me, the bleachers filled with people I'd known for years. Neighbors, friends from Tyler's school, parents from the team, all of them about to witness something they'd never forget. Then I saw them. David walking up the bleacher stairs with a woman and 2 small children. Monica was prettier in person than in photos. Long dark hair, warm smile, young and vibrant in her sundress. The little boy, maybe 6 now, wore a baseball glove that looked brand new. The little girl, around 4, clutched a stuffed animal in David's hand, They looked like a normal family coming to watch a normal baseball game. My hands clenched into fists so tight my nails bit into my palms. Those children were innocent in all of this. They didn't ask to be born into a lie, but I couldn't protect them from the truth any more than I could protect Tyler. The truth was coming for all of us. David guided them to the seats I'd saved, his hand casually on Monica's lower back, in a gesture that made my stomach turn. It was the same way he touched me. Proprietary, affectionate, completely natural. "Sarah, this is Monica from the Phoenix office," he said, with that perfect husband smile. "Monica, this is my wife, Sarah." Wife. He said it so easily, like the word meant something to him, like he wasn't looking at both his wives in the same moment. Monica extended her hand, and I shook it, feeling her warm palm against mine. "Thank you so much for having us," she said sincerely, her voice sweet and genuinely grateful. "David talks about you and Tyler all the time. It's wonderful to finally meet you." The irony was so thick I could choke on it. This woman thought she was meeting her boyfriend's ex-wife, being gracious and mature about a complicated situation. She had no idea she was shaking hands with the current wife of the man sharing her bed 3 nights a week. "David talks about a lot of things," I said, my voice carrying an edge sharp enough to cut. "Not all of them are true." Monica laughed awkwardly, thinking I was making a joke about husbands exaggerating. David laughed too, but I saw the flash of concern in his eyes, the first crack in his armor. He was starting to sense something was off. "These must be your children," I said, looking down at the 2 kids who had David's eyes. David's smile, David's chin. His DNA was written all over their faces. "What are your names?" "I'm Jake," the boy said shyly, hiding slightly behind David's leg. "And this is Emma." "Jake and Emma," I repeated, committing their names to memory. These children would remember this day for the rest of their lives. "Did your daddy bring you to see the game today?" The little boy nodded enthusiastically, his shyness disappearing. "Daddy said we could get ice cream after, and that I could maybe play catch." "Daddy." The word detonated in the space between us like a grenade. I saw Monica's face change, confusion flickering across her features as she glanced sharply at David. She was wondering why her son just called him daddy in front of his supposed ex-wife. David's jaw clenched, his perfect facade starting to fracture. "That's nice," I said, my voice deadly calm. "David loves ice cream and playing catch. Don't you, honey? You're such a good father." The word father hung in the air like an accusation. People around us were starting to notice the strange tension, conversations dying as neighbors tuned into our drama. Jessica touched my arm, concerned. "Sarah, you sure you're okay?" "I'm perfect," I said, loud enough for several rows to hear. "I'm just so grateful David invited his colleagues to Tyler's game. It means so much to have his whole life represented here today." Monica's eyes narrowed slightly. She was smart enough to sense the subtext, even if she didn't understand it yet. David shifted uncomfortably, his hand moving to Monica's shoulder in what he probably thought was a reassuring gesture, but all it did was fuel the fire burning in my chest. Down on the field, the teams were lining up for the national anthem. Tyler stood on the pitcher's mound in his uniform, scanning the crowd until he found me. I waved, forcing brightness into the gesture, and he waved back, proud and nervous and hopeful. My beautiful boy who had no idea his world was about to implode. The national anthem played. Everyone stood with hands over hearts, and I felt the weight of what I was about to do pressing down on me like a physical force. When the music ended and people started to sit back down, chattering about the game and the weather, I remained standing. "Before the game starts," I said, my voice cutting through the noise like a knife, "I have something I need to say." David grabbed my arm, his fingers digging in hard enough to bruise. "Sarah, what are you doing?" he hissed, panic finally shattering his calm exterior. "Sit down. Now." I pulled my arm away and turned to face Monica directly. The bleachers around us went quiet, dozens of conversations stopping mid-sentence as people realized something was happening. "Monica, I need you to know something important," I said clearly. "David and I aren't divorced. We're not separated. We've been married for 10 years, and until Wednesday, I thought we had a happy, faithful marriage." Monica's face drained of color. "What? No, that's not. David said you were divorced years ago." "David lies," I said simply. "He told you what you needed to hear to sleep with him, to have his children, to build a life with him, just like he told me what I needed to hear to do the exact same thing." The crowd gasped, a wave of shock rippling through the bleachers. The bleachers erupted in chaos. People were standing, turning, trying to understand what they'd just heard. Monica stood frozen, her hand covering her mouth, eyes wide with horror and disbelief. David's face had turned crimson, veins bulging in his neck as he realized his carefully constructed world was collapsing. "You're lying," Monica said, her voice shaking. "David, tell her she's lying. Tell everyone she's crazy." But David couldn't speak. He stood there like a statue, his mouth opening and closing soundlessly, all his practiced explanations and manipulations failing him in the face of public exposure. I pulled out my phone and held up a photo for everyone to see. David and Monica's family at a park, all of them smiling at the camera. "This was taken 3 weeks ago," I said loudly. "At a park in Tempe, 15 minutes from the house David and I share in Scottsdale." I swiped to another photo. "This is from Jake's birthday party 2 months ago. And this one is from Emma's first day of preschool last year." Monica snatched my phone, scrolling through the photos with trembling hands. Her face crumpled as she saw the evidence. Months and years of David living as her partner, her children's father, while simultaneously being my husband. "Oh my God," she whispered, then louder. "Oh my God, you bastard." She whirled on David, and I saw the exact moment her shock transformed into rage. "You told me you were divorced," she screamed, shoving him hard in the chest. "You said you had an ex-wife you barely spoke to. You said there were no kids. You've been lying to me for 7 years. "Monica, let me explain," David started, reaching for her, but she slapped his hand away. "Explain what?" she shouted, tears streaming down her face. "Explain how you've been sleeping in her bed while telling me you loved me? Explain how our children call you daddy while you play stepdad to her son." She turned to me, her voice breaking. "Did you know about us?" "Not until 3 days ago," I said, my own tears falling now. I found a text message on his phone. That's when I discovered everything. The second house, the second bank account, the color-coded calendar splitting his time between us. The crowd around us had grown completely silent, 100 people watching our lives detonate in real time. I could see phones out, recording, this disaster already spreading beyond the baseball field. Down on the diamond, the game had stopped before it even started. Players and coaches staring up at the bleachers where the real drama was unfolding. David finally found his voice. "Sarah, Monica, please, we can discuss this privately, not here, not like this." He tried his reasonable voice, the one he used to smooth over problems and make everything seem manageable. "Think about the children. Think about Tyler. This isn't fair to them." "You're talking to us about fair?" I said, my voice rising to a shout. "You're talking about the children you betrayed?" I pointed at Jake and Emma, who were crying now, confused and frightened. "Those babies didn't ask to be born into your lie. Tyler didn't ask to have a stepfather living a double life." Monica was pulling her children close, trying to shield them while her own world shattered. "We're leaving," she said to them, her voice thick with tears. "We're going home right now." "Monica, wait!" David grabbed her arm, and that's when Tyler's baseball coach stepped in. "I think you need to let her go," Coach Martinez said firmly, moving between David and Monica. Other dads from the team flanked him, forming a wall. "In fact, I think you need to leave, David. Now." "This is none of your business," David shouted, his composure completely gone now. "This is between me and my family." "Which family?" I asked coldly. "The one you married, or the one you've been keeping secret for 7 years? I looked at the crowd, at all our friends and neighbors watching with shock and disgust on their faces. David Mitchell has been living a double life. 2 homes, 2 families, 2 complete sets of lies. Jessica pushed forward through the crowd and wrapped her arm around me. "Come on, Sarah. You don't need to be here for this. But I did need to be here. I needed to see David's perfect facade destroyed the way he'd destroyed our marriage. I needed Monica to know the truth. Needed our community to see who he really was. I'm not going anywhere," I said. "I've spent 3 days carrying this secret and I'm done. Everyone here deserves to know exactly who David is." David's face twisted with rage and humiliation. "You vindictive bitch," he spat. All pretense of the nice guy finally dropped. "You couldn't handle this like an adult. You had to destroy me publicly." "No, David," I said, my voice steady and strong. "You destroyed yourself. I just finally told the truth." Security was making their way up the bleachers now. Monica had already fled with her sobbing children, disappearing into the parking lot. Tyler stood on the pitcher's mound, his face pale and stricken, staring at the man he'd called his stepdad for 7 years. As security escorted David out of the stadium, he looked back at me one last time. I saw hatred in his eyes, and blame, and the desperate anger of a man whose carefully built lies had finally caught up with him. But I also saw something else. Defeat. The truth had won, and there was no coming back from this. The game didn't happen. After security removed David from the stadium, the coaches made the decision to postpone, citing family emergency, without specifying whose family or what emergency. Parents gathered their confused kids, whispering and staring as they filed out of the bleachers. I sat frozen in my spot, watching the field empty, feeling the weight of what I'd just done crash down on me like a building collapsing. Jessica stayed beside me, her hand gripping mine. "Sarah, let's get you home," she said gently. "I need to talk to Tyler first." I managed, my voice hoarse from screaming. Down on the field, my son sat alone on the pitcher's mound, still in his uniform, his head in his hands. He looked so small, so broken, and I had done that to him. I'd chosen truth over his happiness, justice over his big moment. I made my way down from the bleachers on shaking legs. Every step felt like wading through concrete. When I reached the field, Tyler looked up at me with red, swollen eyes. "Mom," he said, his voice cracking. "Is it true? All of it?" I sat down next to him on the pitcher's mound, dirt staining my jeans. "Yes, baby. It's all true." I wanted to hold him, to comfort him, but he pulled away when I reached for him. "You knew for 3 days," he said, and I heard the accusation in his voice. "You knew, and you didn't tell me. You let me get excited about today, let me think David would be here supporting me, and the whole time you were planning to blow everything up." The words hit me like physical blows. "Tyler, I'm so sorry. My championship game, Mom." His voice rose, pain and anger spilling out. "This was supposed to be my day, and now everyone's going to remember it as the day you exposed David's affair in front of the entire school." He stood up, wiping his eyes roughly. "I can't even look at you right now." He walked away toward the parking lot, leaving me sitting alone on the empty field. Jessica appeared beside me a moment later, helping me to my feet. "Give him time," she said. "He's hurt and confused. He'll come around." But would he? I'd destroyed his relationship with David, ruined his big moment, humiliated him in front of his entire team. What kind of mother does that? Jessica drove me home. I was too shaky to drive myself. Tyler had gotten a ride with Coach Martinez, who'd promised to talk to him and make sure he was okay. When we pulled into my driveway in Scottsdale, I saw David's truck was already there. My stomach dropped. "I'm calling the police," Jessica said immediately, reaching for her phone. "No, wait," I said. "I need to face him. I need to make it clear this marriage is over." I took a deep breath and got out of the car. Jessica followed me to the door, staying close. Inside, David was packing. Suitcases lay open on our bed, clothes thrown in haphazardly. When he saw me, his face hardened. "Come to gloat?" he asked bitterly. "Come to tell you to get out of my house," I said, my voice stronger than I felt. "Pack what you need and leave. Everything else we'll handle through lawyers." "Your house?" David laughed, a harsh, ugly sound. "I've been paying the mortgage for 10 years, Sarah. This is my house too. Then we'll sell it," I said flatly. "But you're not staying here another night. You can go to Monica's. Oh wait, she probably doesn't want you either." David's hands clenched into fists. For a moment, I thought he might hit me, and Jessica stepped between us protectively. "You need to leave," she told him firmly. "Now, before I call the cops." Something in Jessica's voice must have gotten through to him. David grabbed his suitcases and headed for the door, then stopped and looked back at me. "You know what the worst part is?" he said. "I actually loved both of you. I never meant for anyone to get hurt." "But we did get hurt," I said, tears streaming down my face again. "All of us. Me, Monica, Tyler, Jake, Emma, everyone except you, David. You got exactly what you wanted for 7 years." I walked to the door and held it open. "Now get out." After he left, I collapsed on the couch and sobbed until I had nothing left. Jessica sat with me, not saying anything, just being there. Eventually, my phone started buzzing with texts and calls. Friends, family, people from the baseball game. Word was spreading fast. One number I didn't recognize finally got through. It was Monica. "I'm so sorry I hung up on you," she said, her voice thick with crying. I couldn't process it all. The kids were hysterical, and I needed to get them out of there." "I understand," I said. "Monica, I'm sorry you found out that way. I just couldn't let him keep lying to both of us." "No, you did the right thing," she said firmly. "I've been living a lie for 7 years. My kids have been living a lie. Better to know now than waste more years on that bastard." She paused, then added quietly, "Can we meet? I think we need to talk. Compare notes. Figure out what the hell we're going to do." The idea of sitting down with David's other woman should have felt bizarre, but somehow it felt necessary. "Tomorrow," I suggested. "There's a coffee shop on the border between Scottsdale and Tempe. Neutral territory." "Tomorrow," Monica agreed. "And Sarah, thank you for telling the truth even when it cost you everything." After we hung up, I sat in the quiet house and realized she was right. Telling the truth had cost me everything. My marriage, Tyler's trust, our family's reputation, the comfortable lie I'd been living. But I'd gained something too. I'd gained my dignity back, my strength, my refusal to be manipulated anymore. The next morning, Tyler still wasn't speaking to me. He'd come home late the night before and gone straight to his room. I'd tried knocking, tried talking through the door, but he'd told me to go away. So I gave him space, even though it killed me. I met Monica at the coffee shop as planned. She looked as exhausted as I felt. Dark circles under her eyes, hair pulled back in a messy ponytail. We sat across from each other, 2 women destroyed by the same man. "Jake asked me this morning if Daddy is coming back," Monica said, stirring her coffee without drinking it. I didn't know what to tell him. "Tyler won't even talk to me," I admitted. "He blames me for ruining his game." Monica reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "Our kids will understand eventually. When they're older, they'll realize you did the brave thing." She pulled out her phone. "I've been going through everything. Bank statements, texts, emails. He was meticulous about keeping us separate. Different credit cards, different phone plans, different everything. We spent 2 hours comparing notes, piecing together the full picture of David's double life. It was worse than either of us had known. The lies went deeper, the manipulation more calculated than we'd imagined. But something strange happened as we talked. We stopped being rivals and became allies, 2 survivors of the same betrayal, helping each other make sense of the wreckage. "I've already called a lawyer," Monica said as we prepared to leave. "I'm filing for child support. He may have lied about everything else, but those are his kids and he's going to take care of them." "I'm filing for divorce on Monday," I said, "and I'm taking him for everything he's got." Monica smiled, the first real smile I'd seen from her. "Good," she said. "Make him pay." As I drove home, I realized something had shifted. The pain was still there, the betrayal still fresh and agonizing. But underneath it all, I felt something I hadn't felt in days. Hope. Hope that I'd survive this. Hope that Tyler would forgive me eventually. Hope that the truth, as devastating as it was, had finally set us all free. 3 months later, I stood in the same bleachers at Desert Vista High School, watching Tyler pitch in another championship game. But everything was different now. The whispers had mostly stopped, replaced by something unexpected. Respect. Women I barely knew had reached out to tell me I was brave, that I'd inspired them to confront their own relationship problems. I'd become an accidental symbol of refusing to accept betrayal. Tyler was speaking to me again, though our relationship was still healing. It had taken 6 weeks of family therapy and countless difficult conversations, but he'd finally started to understand why I'd done what I did. "I get it now, Mom," he'd said last week during one of our sessions. "You couldn't let him keep lying to everyone. It would have eaten you alive." He'd paused, then added quietly, "And it would have taught me that lying is okay as long as you don't get caught." That conversation had been a turning point. Tyler wasn't calling David anymore, had refused his attempts at reconciliation. My son had seen his stepfather's true character that day on the field, and he'd made his own choice about who deserved his loyalty. The divorce was moving forward smoothly. Well, as smoothly as any divorce involving infidelity, hidden assets, and public humiliation could move. My lawyer was a shark, and she was taking David apart piece by piece. The house would be mine, along with half of everything he'd tried to hide in that second bank account. Turned out that supporting a secret family with marital assets was grounds for a very favorable settlement. Monica sat 3 rows behind me now, Jake and Emma with her. "Yes," David's other family came to Tyler's games. It had started a month ago when Monica texted me asking if it would be weird. "Jake really misses watching baseball," she'd written. "And Emma keeps asking about Tyler. I know it's complicated, but it should have been weird. It should have been impossible." But somehow, in the aftermath of David's betrayal, Monica and I had formed an unlikely friendship. We'd both been victims of the same man's lies, and there was a strange solidarity in that. Our kids were half-siblings, whether David acknowledged it or not, and in a twisted way, we'd become the unconventional blended family David had never intended to create. "Go, Tyler!" Monica shouted as my son struck out another batter. Jake cheered next to her, wearing one of Tyler's old team jerseys that I'd given him. Tyler had been surprisingly okay with his half-siblings coming to games. "They're just kids, Mom," he'd said. "It's not their fault their dad is a lying asshole." Jessica sat beside me, as she had at every game since that disastrous day 3 months ago. "You doing okay?" she asked, squeezing my hand. "Yeah," I said, and meant it. "I really am." It was true. The first month had been hell. Crying every day, barely sleeping, dealing with Tyler's anger and the community gossip, and David's attempts to paint himself as the victim. But I'd survived it. More than survived. I'd grown stronger. I'd learned that I didn't need a husband to define me. Didn't need to pretend everything was perfect to be worthy. I'd learned that the truth, no matter how painful, was always better than a comfortable lie. David had disappeared from Phoenix entirely. Last I heard, he'd moved to California, started over somewhere new where nobody knew about his double life. He sent child support payments on time. My lawyer had made sure of that, but he'd made no effort to maintain relationships with any of his kids. Tyler had been hurt by that at first, but now he said he was relieved. "At least now I know who he really is," my son had told me. No more pretending. Monica was dating someone new, a divorced dad she'd met through her kids' school. "He knows everything," she'd told me proudly, about David, about the lies, all of it. "And he still wants to be with me." She'd glowed when she said it, and I'd been genuinely happy for her. She deserved someone honest. As for me, I wasn't ready to date yet. Maybe I would be someday, but right now I was focused on rebuilding my life on my own terms. I'd gone back to work full-time, picked up freelance design projects I'd abandoned during my marriage. I'd reconnected with friends I'd lost touch with, started going to therapy, learned how to be alone without being lonely. I'd discovered that I actually liked myself, like the woman I was becoming in the aftermath of betrayal. Tyler pitched a perfect final inning, striking out all 3 batters. The crowd erupted in cheers as his team won the championship. This time, there was no drama, no explosions, just pure celebration. Tyler ran off the field and straight to me, pulling me into a sweaty hug. "We did it, Mom," he shouted. "You did it," I corrected, holding him tight. "I'm so proud of you, Tyler." Monica came down from the bleachers with Jake and Emma. The kids high-fived Tyler, and Monica hugged me. "We should all go celebrate," she suggested. "Pizza? My treat?" I looked at this strange little family we'd accidentally created. Me and Tyler, Monica and her kids, Jessica and her husband. Other friends who'd stuck by me through the scandal. It wasn't what I'd planned. It wasn't the perfect family portrait I'd imagined when I married David 10 years ago. But it was real. It was honest. And it was mine. "Pizza sounds perfect," I said. Later that night, after pizza and celebration and finally getting home, Tyler came into my room as I was getting ready for bed. "Mom," he said from the doorway, "I just wanted to say, I'm glad you told the truth that day, even though it sucked at the time." He looked down at his feet, then back up at me. "You taught me something important, that living with integrity matters more than being comfortable." I felt tears spring to my eyes. "Oh, Tyler," I said, pulling him into a hug. "You have no idea how much I needed to hear that." After he went to bed, I sat alone in my room, in my house, in my life that I was building from scratch. I thought about that day 3 months ago, standing in the bleachers with my heart pounding, knowing I was about to detonate everything. I thought about the choice I'd made, truth over comfort, dignity over pretense, painful reality over beautiful lies. It had cost me everything. My marriage, my family's privacy, Tyler's championship game, the comfortable illusion of my perfect life. But it had given me something more valuable. It had given me myself back. I picked up my phone and opened my notes app, where I'd been writing down thoughts and feelings as part of my therapy homework. I typed, "Today, Tyler won his championship game. Today, Monica brought her kids to cheer for him. Today I realized that the family I have now, messy, unconventional, brutally honest, is better than the perfect lie I was living before. Today I realized I don't regret telling the truth, not for a single second." I saved the note and put my phone away. Tomorrow I'd go to work, maybe have coffee with Monica, definitely hug Tyler and tell him I loved him. I'd keep building this new life, one honest day at a time. The life where I didn't have to wonder if my husband was lying, didn't have to share him with a woman who didn't know I existed, didn't have to live in fear of the truth coming out, because the truth was already out, and I was free. I found out my husband had a second family 15 minutes from our home, and he invited them to our son's game. That discovery destroyed my marriage, humiliated me publicly, and shattered the life I thought I had, but it also saved me. It forced me to choose truth over lies, strength over convenience, and my own dignity over a comfortable illusion. And looking back now, 3 months later, I'd make the same choice every single time, because living an honest life, no matter how painful, will always beat living a beautiful lie. Always. Thank you for listening to my story. Subscribe to the channel.